Welcome to Kaijutopia. I'm Tom, and we're almost finished with our big Godzilla versus Battleship project that I started a little over a week ago. How's everyone doing? I hope you guys are doing well. Hopefully you got a lot of rest over the weekend. I'm just still getting used to the whole streaming thing, so I'm experimenting in real time. I hope everything is coming across okay. So, real quick, let's see how we're doing. Things seem to be actually working this time. A couple weeks back, I attempted to do a scheduled stream, but for some reason it just didn't connect. But now it seems to be working pretty good, so that's exciting. All right, so let's just get straight into it. I think that's the reason why you guys are here, right? Obviously, if you are watching, feel free to say hi, and I hope this is enjoyable. I really do enjoy doing these. It's been a long time coming. I mean, the channel's been around for like what feels like a million years, and like now just starting to try to just share, certain techniques I picked up over the years that I think might prove valuable to you if you're interested in making similar kaiju animations. All right, so we are in our main Godzilla War at Sea VFX file here, and this has so many comps, and we can go over them one step at a time, or we could just touch base with whatever happens to look interesting. But as of right now, what's happening is these battleships are about to be in for a rude awakening. And if anyone followed the last couple of streams, they would know that this location in the background has changed considerably. So let's start with that, because I feel like one of the most important things when it comes to doing these sort of projects is treat the location, the environment, as its own character. Treat it as something that is an invaluable commodity. It is something that plays a huge role in making sure that whatever you do, whatever is in motion, it not only looks right, it's immersive, but it also kind of like really sets the tone. We're talking strictly atmosphere here. So I'm going to go ahead and hide everything except the background here. And we're going to go into our city comp. And our city comp is exactly what it sounds. It's a combination of the city in the background, but also the ocean that we have right here in the front. Well, actually, technically in the background, but anyone familiar with the whole setup of After Effects would know that whatever is at the bottom here of your file in the bottom left corner here, that is whatever's at the bottom is basically behind everything else. So if I were to take this ocean right now and move it, it goes behind the rest of the city. Speaking of which, this city right here is, well, you can't really see what it looks like until I remove all these amazing effects out of the way. This is called Hatsukaichi. I visited it back in the summer of 2019. It's in Japan. And it's a little bit like south of, I believe it's south of Hiroshima. And it's a still image. The ocean is separate. In fact, it's two different effects at work here. And the image of Hatsukaichi itself was originally video footage that I took when we were riding on the ferry, because as soon as I, like, literally every time I was, say, on a boat or walking through this city, Tokyo or Hiroshima or Osaka or Kyoto, I always had my phone out taking as much footage and pictures as possible, because I knew someday I'm going to make incredible Godzilla stop motion films. And I realized last time when I first started doing this stream a while back, more like a week ago, I used Seattle as the background, and really the more I looked at it, the more I realized this just isn't going to work. So I thought Hatsukaichi would make a great, I guess, replacement. I mean, it just felt like the most fitting backgrounds. I mean, we're talking Godzilla here after all, so makes sense that we're in Japan. And it's a still image, and the reason why is because I was on top of a ferry holding a cell phone, and no matter how steady I feel like I can be, there's no stabilization. There's no way I could have stabilized it, especially since the whole, as you're about to see, this whole thing is supposed to be like 45 seconds long. Okay, who do we have? Lord Ray, can't wait to see your next kaiju fight. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. I can't wait to get started. I have a couple ideas coming in the next couple weeks and even months. Stay tuned. Kaiju fights are like definitely my favorite kind of stop motion sort of animations to do there, and I always try to make sure that when I do them, that each kaiju has, receives their fair share of respect and gets a chance to shine more than once. So let's take a look at this. All right, so we see here that I have created what I'm calling a dust wall. It's really just plumes of smoke, which indicates that this place has, well, recently been attacked. I'll leave the guessing game to you guys. I mean, who do you think? Come on, we're gonna make this the kaiju equivalent to Clue. Who do you think attacked this city? Anyone? It's kind of obvious, isn't it? Or is it? All right, so yeah, I know that was tricky. It's unwise to start, try and like solve a crime, a kaiju crime during a live stream. But anyway, so I played around here, and in the background is this dust wall, which I had to cut out a mask around, because I realized originally without the mask that it's obscuring most of the city, and honestly, you kind of don't realize it's a city. In fact, you could see the mountains and everything, but when all the effects come together, you just can't really tell that a city was recently attacked by a giant monster, or more accurately, a giant radioactive monster that just completely and utterly, maybe he just wanted some sushi or something, who knows. Jacobson Studios, how are you doing? I can't wait to see how this turns out looking. Oh yeah, I don't know what your schedule is. Last time I checked, you are a very busy VFX artist yourself, so feel free to stick around. I'll be more than happy to show you guys. We're almost finished with this project. It still requires a couple bugs to work out, and I'll explain how I'm hoping to have this hopefully premiering within the next 2 weeks. But by all means, thanks for visiting, and I hope you enjoy this. So the next effect I added here is this fiery plume, and anyone familiar with my projects knows that I really love these effects, especially when it comes to the monsters. And what I like to do is, when I select my fiery plume here, I go to the very top, like 11 o'clock, and click on layer, go to time and time stretch, and I've increased this to 300. So it's now 3 times its normal length, and it barely reaches the 45-second mark. And the reason why is because you, the viewer, you're out at sea right now. So what you see in the distance translates over to the slow motion. I mean, when we click play here, we see that there is indeed motion. We see that there is activity happening. But if I were to take that away, let's say I decided I am going to reduce this back down to its normal length. What happens? What happens is it takes a moment for my poor computer to render everything all over again. It's like, seriously, Tom? Really? You know how long it took me to get that set up for you guys? And while it doesn't look bad, to me, it just kind of looks like we're a lot closer than we actually are. And even though there is a lot of activity in the foreground here, this is where the battle itself takes place, I just feel like that is in itself distracting. But speaking of distractions, let's bring up something else. So I brought in, it's a copy of the other dust wall, but now it's here to kind of obscure the fiery plume I just showed you guys. And here's one of my favorite things as of late. If you guys are familiar with big films, any VFX artists in the chat or watching right now, I highly recommend you guys give these guys a shot. Surprisingly, their products are really not too expensive. I mean, it's definitely something you'd have to save up for, but they recently released a Devastation pack, and these things are unbelievably cool. So for example, here's one that of a building, right? This is definitely a sign of things to come, guys. I cannot wait to really get started. Earlier, I believe it was Lord Ray talked about how he wants to see the next kaiju fight, and I can assure you, when I get to the next kaiju fight, we're going to see so much building devastation. So much is going to get just ruined. And even though it's taking its time to render, you can still see what I mean here. This looks pretty awesome. Big Films, check them out. You just got to Google them. They're like a filmmaker's dream come true. They're going to be your best friend. But instead of adding motion, I just took a still frame of the last frame and just extended it. Because at this point, the devastation is done. All I need is to show rubble. And a couple other fiery plumes and some smoke. Let's get some other stuff up here. And now we're beginning to see the city itself is clearly in ruins. It's I don't know what else to tell you. Aside from the fact that it's time to get to the nitty gritty. Alright, so I'm trying to remember the last time we went over a couple things. I was trying to get the splashes right. I was working on Godzilla's tail, and I think I figured it out pretty good. So here is just to show you guys. Oh, that's going to be harder to see. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to keep the screen dark in order for you guys to see the water here. But here we see Godzilla's tail rises. This is a separate comp. I decided to make Godzilla's do and animate Godzilla's tail separately from the rest of him. And I'm going to show you why in just a moment here. But I really thought this turned out pretty good. And the reason why now in this part we're seeing less and less splashes is because Godzilla's Godzilla is literally standing like right here as I can show you now. So we have Godzilla's tail here and Godzilla himself. And right now, so much he's literally going to war with the Navy here, and it is, as soon as he comes out of the water, it is like all hell literally breaks loose, and it becomes just a war zone. Hence, Godzilla War at Sea is the working title. Of course, what did I do for this stream? It's called Godzilla X Battleship. I am so special. I think that is very fitting too. So we're just going to show you Godzilla and his tail at work here. And the reason why earlier I mentioned that, yeah, there he starts rising. And we can even see the water begin to churn a little bit there as he rises. Anyway, the reason why I wanted to do this separately is for this reason. I am going to summon Godzilla's, one of Godzilla's enemies in this film, and it's an aircraft carrier. And this aircraft carrier is, as you can see, as soon as Godzilla starts rising, jets are taking off. And as soon as that third jet takes off, you'll notice something. The jet flies between Godzilla and his tail. This would have been extremely challenging for me anyway if I made Godzilla and his tail the same comp, if I did it all in one composition. And the reason why is because it would be easy to have the jet fly behind Godzilla. That's not the hard part. But if Godzilla and the tail were the same comp, I would have to take my pen tool up here and cut around the tail, and frame by frame I would have to move along with it and then create what is called an adjustment layer. You go to the layer, new, and adjustment layer, and then you would combine that together, and it would just be, it's a lot of work, guys. It's a lot of work, and I thought it would just be more practical to do these effects separately. Just make sure the green screen, because I animated both Godzilla and his tail in front of a green screen. Just make sure the lighting is just right. Just make sure you get everything in order so that Godzilla and his tail, like the tone, the lighting, it just matches, and you're good to go. Let's see, Jacobson says, do you think action VFX is something worth saving up for as someone with a very low budget? This is a great question. So, speaking as somebody who I basically almost have a non-existent budget per project, everything you've seen me use, and I've used a lot of action VFX over the years, it was accumulated over several years worth of time, usually involving me saving money and then going for, maybe not buying like everything because I'm not a major studio and I couldn't afford it. However, Action VFX does every now and then do these holiday 30 or 50% off sales, and really I think you should, I definitely would recommend them, but it also depends wildly on you. So if I would first, maybe if you haven't already considered taking their free, they usually on their site have free FX for you to, not really buy, but add to your cart at no charge. And that in itself, what they use as samples, usually is pretty good in itself. But I think it's worth saving for, me personally, because it really amps up your game. It really, I think, adds more of a novelty to your projects. But really, it's also, I guess it depends on the project and of course where you are financially. I would also consider trying to see if, I mean, they do have memberships as well, but again, it's all about budget. You just gotta make sure that whatever you end up using for your projects and whatever sort of VFX assets you purchase doesn't affect your bottom line. But with that all said, yeah, I think they're worth saving up for, especially if they have a new package that comes out that's just too good to resist. But yeah, I hope I answered your question. Kind of felt like I was rambling a little bit, but I do recommend them. And Jacobson Studios, feel free to also shout out and let us know if you have any projects going on. If you do, I believe you mentioned you're working on one right now, so would love to hear more about it. In the meantime, let's get to the next part here. Let's talk about those the fighter jets that are taking off, because I feel like that is something maybe some of you might be interested in. And this might be a shocker, but none of these are CG. None of these are like 3D models. I could add 3D. I could warp the fighter jets themselves if I wanted to. But here's what we have right now. So we start with the aircraft carrier, and I'm going to just move everything out of the way for a second. Always remember to save, guys. Always remember to save. For me, Command save. Command S if you're on a Mac. Seriously. You'll understand if you work for a couple hours and then forget to save and then something happens, because it always does. Alright, so we have our aircraft carrier here, and we have what I'm calling the back jets. I'm going to increase the resolution for a second so it's easier to see. Hopefully it doesn't make my After Effects crash. I know I just talked about saving, and it's for that very reason. The last time, just a couple days ago, I was doing a stream, and within like the first 2.5 minutes, After Effects just crashed. It's so, it does that. Alright, so we have a clearer image here, and here are the jets all lined up. And then, of course, we add our front jets. And you'll notice some shadows have been added. This was, I noticed that, when you really... I'm just picky about this sort of thing. I know not everyone usually notices these sort of things, and it's totally fine. But for me, whenever I'm, like, trying to brainstorm do I have everything? Is there anything else I need to do? I really care. I can't stress this enough. When you watch my movies, I want you to feel like, I want you to first forget that these are action figures, right? These are Godzilla toys that are going on rampage. I mean, anyone who can, stop me if you've heard this or if you can relate, but, when I was younger, when I was a kid and would play with my Godzilla toys, like, absolutely nothing, maybe not even the movies themselves, could really capture that imagination you feel whenever you're taking your Godzilla toy and having him fight like King Ghidorah or something. It just is out of this world. Nothing really compares to that childhood imagination that like when you, I don't know how else to describe it. It's like you're achieving some sort of, I guess it's like the ultimate form of suspending your disbelief, and anything at that point is possible. So I know that was a lot right there. And it's kind of weird to say that, but I feel like, that whole thing just started because I'm like, I added shadows to my fighter jets, and then I go down that spiel. What can I say? But that's just a minor example of where I'm coming from. Every little attention to detail. I just want you guys to feel like you're witnessing something more profound, something that you'll remember, and I hope you all enjoy it. But here's what we're really here to talk about. Here's where why are we here? It's because we are talking about these jets, and these jets themselves are still images. These are all still images. And, oh, wait a minute. Mittens Cat Underlord says, hey, the sound's only coming out the left headphone. Interesting. That is interesting. Here, let me see if I can adjust it. I'm not sure if I adjusted it right, but of course, if it's still happening, please let me know. Still got more bugs to work out. If it's fixed, then great. Please let me know too. Welcome, by the way. Ooh, hey, Jacobson Studios. Thanks. My film I'm working on is called Godzilla vs. Gigan. I have a few friends voice acting the human characters. Oh, that is awesome. I also made a whole soundtrack for it. This project you're making looks beautiful. Hey, first off, thank you so much for that. And also, that is so exciting. You got your friends to do it. That's awesome. That's how you do it. And of course, having actors, I think human characters. Yeah, you said human characters. It would be cool to also have friends voicing the kaiju themselves. That's a good idea too. But having actual human characters in your movie, I feel like already makes it even more intriguing. I mean, I'm a big Godzilla fan. I love me some good monster like versus battles. I mean, see my channel. Have you seen my channel? It's what I do usually, but I also love human characters. Absolutely. And you made a whole soundtrack for it. Hey man, good for you. Good for you. I can't wait to see it. Joey's Monster Movies says, hello. Welcome, man. Welcome. I hope you're enjoying the stream. Just trying to... I'm so scattered brain today. But I think where I was going with the VFX stuff, because I guess where I was going was just talking about, this is a still image of a fighter jet. There's no 3D. I could add 3D and I could make it do some 3D stuff, but I don't think it would look good. And honestly, I don't think it's necessary. So I have 3 jets taking off. And it's kind of funny because when I originally thought about doing this movie, I knew that I was going to basically have a 45-second long action sequence. But I also made sure the resolution was in like the 4K mode. So right here we can go to composition settings and I have it 3840, 2160, aspect ratio 16:9. Basically 4K. And the reason why I do this is because the final movie will have in more 1920 1080p resolution, just HD, standard HD, or maybe a little bit above, can't remember. But basically, the reason why I do most of my VFX stuff in 4K is because later on, when I'm in the post-production editing phase, I could take these large images, and maybe there's something that happens that I feel like you, the viewer, should see, or maybe you miss, because this is all big, one big extreme wide shot of a huge Godzilla taking on an entire Navy group battle. There's going to be explosions, water is going to go flying, atomic breath is going to be blazing, and there's a lot to miss. So that will give me a chance to do a couple close-ups here, and instead of making this one long, we're just watching from this angle, even though it looks cool, this will allow us to switch back and forth, and I can really add a more cinematic feel to it without losing its visual integrity too. That's the best part, if you ask me. Stop Motion and Stuff says, hi, hello, welcome. Ooh, this would be an awesome live action movie too. Absolutely agree. In fact, I have to admit, I was inspired to do this by this really memorable sequence from Godzilla vs. Biollante. Shortly after Godzilla escaped Mount Mahara, which was one of the most amazing Godzilla scenes ever. I mean, it's not every day you see Godzilla just walk out of an erupting volcano. We then, of course, the Navy is there to greet him because they missed him for so long. I mean, I'm sure they were like pen pals at one point in time. And of course, their way of saying, "Hey, nice to see you. It's been a long time," is to just shoot him. And Godzilla, of course, obliged them with a healthy sign of friendship with his atomic breath. But that scene in itself definitely went a long way in inspiring me to do my own Godzilla versus Navy group little movie. Not sure, but I mentioned that Godzilla coming out of Mount Mahara was one of my favorite Godzilla scenes. What's yours, guys? What? Don't feel like you need to constrain yourself, or that you can, don't feel like you need to limit yourself to just one Godzilla scene. I mean, lay them out there. Let me know what your favorite Godzilla scenes are. There's so many to choose for. Take that, you dinosaur. Oh, without question, easily one of the best lines in the entire Heisei Godzilla series right there. Possibly for the entire Godzilla franchise. It's really hard to surpass that brilliance. So already, I'm going to start dropping in some of the battleships here. I'm going to have Godzilla and his tail hide for a second. They're going to stay submerged. And I'm going to bring in, let's see, the back battleship, as I called it. And now we're going to bring in the front. You may notice that there's some reflections, some shadows, and it really is I'm really trying to go all out here because I really want you guys to feel, again, like every single action has a reaction. When you see bombs exploding off Godzilla, you could see the reflection. You see Godzilla's reflection as well. And let's just bring Godzilla back here. Here we are. There's the big G himself. Oh, he's missing his tail. Don't worry, Godzilla. We got your tail back too. So you can see his reflection off of the water, and I'm using Red Giant's VFX suite to really help me out with this, but Adobe After Effects does give you a chance to do your own sort of reflections, and a really simple way to do that is to just duplicate your Godzilla comp and just you would go up to layer, transform, and just flip it vertically, I believe, and from there you can adjust it, maybe take your pen tool, cut out a mask, and then lower the opacity, increase the camera lens blur on it, and you could get a very similar effect to this, no problem. What do we got here? My favorite Godzilla scene, well, one of them is Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah in 1991, when Godzilla arrives. I don't know why, but it's so awesome. Are we talking about when Godzilla, is it stop motion and stuff? That's who I was just reading. Are you talking about when Godzilla like meets that nuclear submarine underwater, or when the Futrians are in their mothership and they're all like celebrating being awesome and smug, but then they're like, oh my goodness, what is that? And it shows this massive object that just appeared on radar, and we cut to Godzilla coming to shore. I mean, both are fantastic. I just want to know which one you were talking about. Joey's Monster Movies, that's one of my favorite Godzilla movies. He says to stop motion and stuff. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah is a really interesting movie. Maybe we should dedicate a whole different stream to that movie alone. I don't know. I feel like we're like 34 minutes in. If we're gonna be here all night, guys. No, I think maybe 30, 40 more minutes. We'll see. My favorite, Mittens Cat Underlord says, my favorite Godzilla scene was from Godzilla in Hell when an angel with Mothra wings tells him to submit and Godzilla just crushed. I thought it was so funny that Godzilla doesn't care. Hey, you know what? I like the way you think. I was thinking favorite Godzilla movie scenes, but I didn't specify, and Godzilla in Hell is one of the best Godzilla comics out there. It's one of my favorites, and yeah, that scene is pretty good. And Mr. Rooster, welcome back. What's up, man? My power is out, but not to worry. Still working on my project. Good. Even in the dark. That's dedication. And by work, I mean stop motion test official footage, of course. I like your dedication to your craft. It's admirable. I think if the power went out right now, I would just go chill, just hang, let my kid just, I don't know, use me as a punching bag. He's been watching a lot of Godzilla movies. What can I say? All right, so here we go. I was talking about reflections earlier, and I did reflections for the city as well. You might not be able to see it now, but let's see. Let's remove a couple subjects here. You can see the outline. You could see the reflections of the city still on the water as well. In case you guys don't know, I do have an Instagram page. My Instagram is Kaijutopia, just like my YouTube channel. And what I like to do is just take screen grabs from movies I've worked on and upload them. And I feel like something like this would be it would just be right for an Instagram photo, because even though I'm definitely passionate about doing stop motion and animations, there's just something so unique that, like, if you manage to find yourself, maybe you did it on purpose, or it's just something that you just realized is what your project has become. But if you can just, even if you were to remove all the battleships right now, like, let's do that. We take away all the battleships, all the other things we see, and this in itself is pretty cool. And I could, like, stop right here and take a screen grab, and in itself, like, I mean, when I say cool, it's like, you know, a city that's been destroyed. Not cool, but I just mean, like, as far as detail goes, this could just be the beginning of a movie. We don't even need the battleships or Godzilla. We could just have this right here, and it looks awesome. Another favorite is the drop kick in the fight with Jet Jaguar. Oh man, Godzilla vs. Megalon is the gift that keeps on giving. I need to watch that again. For Jet Jaguar and Megalon. Megalon deserves a comeback, guys. I mean, I know we saw a variation of Megalon in Godzilla Singular Point, but he was kind of more of a... I don't know if you guys have seen it. I love Godzilla Singular Point. I know it wasn't for everyone, though, but Megalon does technically appear, but kind of as a hybrid with other kaiju. But I want to see Megalon return in his full glory. You know, with a makeover is fine, but, you know, there are so many ways you could just give him a new design, but still have it be in line with the character. I mean, you can, any kaiju, any Godzilla fan could still, as long as they can look at him and go, that's Megalon, you're doing the right thing. My favorite scene is in Tokyo SOS when Kiryu flies Godzilla into the ocean. It's not the most epic, but it has a lot of meaning. I agree. In fact, that's a good one, and I feel like Tokyo SOS is one of those films that is, well, underrated, if you ask me. Maybe it depends on who you're talking to, of course, but I feel like that's a good choice because there was a lot of build up to that. Like, it felt earned. So I think that's a good choice. That's a good scene to shout out. Another Godzilla movie I need to watch again. So many layers in this comp, my PC would explode. Yeah. Um, if the stream suddenly ends, like just erratically, it's probably because mine blew up. It's why I have so many different compositions here, and honestly, I'm kind of prepared to like cut it in half if not everything renders right. I think any bets on how long this thing might take to render when it's all said and done? I mean, you haven't seen everything, so it might be an unfair question to ask, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, this is before super comp, which we'll get into hopefully within the next like 10, 20 minutes. This is where things escalate. But like as of right now, this is going to take like 3, maybe 5 hours to render. It's a 45-second clip, but even with, oh yeah, that's before super comp. With super comp, I don't know. I'm thinking we're looking at like easily a 6-10 hour render. It's going to be insane, which is why I need to make sure this is all right. I mean, you need to go over, and I think at some point you kind of just have to also pick your battles and know like, okay, what really matters, what are the important things, the what is integral to the film. And it's definitely, of course, Godzilla and the battleships. I mean, if you're rendering and suddenly they just disappear for like a frame or two, which has happened, you got to start all over and you got to figure out what caused this. Godzilla SRW, hello, welcome. Hope your Sunday's been treating you well. Thanks for coming. How long is the shot? Yeah, it's about 45 seconds. Yeah, it's going to have to run overnight, definitely. I knew this was going to happen when I brought up Singular Point. I saw Singular Point twice. It lost me twice, and I had no idea what was happening. But man, that Jet versus Anguirus fight, Jet Jaguar versus Anguirus fight was legendary. Of course, despite praising Singular Point, I am still very, man, I'm holding a grudge right now that you brought that up. What they did to Anguirus, still, I may never forgive him for it. But yeah, Singular Point can most certainly be very, very confusing. Here are some of the other splashes in the back. Tail splashes back. Interesting. Wait a minute. You know, it's interesting because I feel like I can do myself a favor here. I'm gonna test something. I'm gonna take, because later on I'm going to use super comp, and there's like a limited number of comps you're going to be able to put it through, and super comp is like a way to enhance like everything. It's like incredible. But I'm wondering if there's a way I can just take all this and put it right behind my tail as is. Interesting. So let's see, this is, you might be noticing that I'm going over and copying the camera lens blur and applying it to my water effects, because the water effects themselves, I believe these ones are in 2K or 4K. Yeah, they're 2K, but they're highly detailed. These water effects, they come from Action VFX, and they did such a great job with all of these that sometimes though you have to blur it out because it looks too detailed, and you know, sometimes it just looks off, especially when water is supposed to be in motion. I mean, that's the whole point, right? So you kind of have to play around with it. Okay, so I think that worked out pretty good, and now I can I might have to come back to that. I'm making adjustments in real time. I need to get back to the program for a second. Okay, so for the time being, I'm gonna have these invisible just in case I need it, because I'm noticing the placement with the water effects and the back battleship here and the firepower. So speaking of firepower, okay, so I really want to just cut to the action, but you know, there's so much to show. Okay. Not sure if anyone can hear it, but my computer is right now like super unhappy. It's like, what is going on? This is insane. I'm gonna go thermonuclear here. We know Godzilla has entered a burning meltdown mode where, well, soon my computer is gonna do the same. Okay, let's have Godzilla come back in. Here's his tail. I'm going to add the oh, spoilers. You saw nothing. All right, front battleship. Let's bring it back. Nothing totally happens to that battleship. And let's get the aircraft carriers. Okay. All right, so we start. Oh yeah, you'll also maybe notice that there's lightning flashes here. And I just absolutely love using lightning and thunder in kaiju movies. Every chance I get, I'm gonna go for it. Okay, so we're gonna start getting ready to unleash some hell here. All right, let me get some stuff ready here. I kind of feel like we should just go all out here because I want to be able to show you guys just what's going on. Okay, let's just go for it. Alright, it's going to take a moment to render. So here we have the opening few seconds. Godzilla starts rising, and of course, as soon as lightning strikes his dorsal fins, they light up. And then, of course, there's like no hesitation. You see a giant monster rise out of the water, you just start peppering him. And even though it's taking my computer a little bit to render, I feel like this is really important to show. It gives us a chance to look and see everything happening kind of in slow motion. And from here, I could make any sort of mental note. All right, so that's a good start. Or should I say a good place to stop for a second? And let's see. Yes, Mr. Rooster. Hey, dude, do you want to hear a bit of what my Jet Jaguar is like? He has quite the lore. No, I see. Yeah, feel free, man. Go for it. To those of you who don't know, Mr. Rooster is a stop-motion artist who's working on a big project himself. So feel free to talk about if you are doing stop-motion projects too. I want to hear about them. Even if we've talked about it in the past, just yeah, go ahead. Pitch them, tell us what's going on. Maybe like, do you have any sort of advice you would like to give, or maybe describe a certain, like, what your process is? I mean, or even what your project like that you're working on right now. Like, I know some of you have already given a brief like synopsis in the past, or you know, you could even just say the title or what kind of kaiju that you're planning on using. Are there any monsters that you would like to get? I'm just going to bombard you guys with one or two more questions, but do you like using SH MonsterArts, or perhaps you prefer NECA, or maybe there's some other, maybe you have your own custom made figures too. Let me know in the chat, guys. Joey's Monster Movies asked, is the Godzilla layer CGI or a practical puppet suit effect? Okay, this is a great question. I'm really happy. Oh, never mind. Jacobson Studios took care of it right away. It's a stop motion of an SH MonsterArts figure. That's absolutely true. And I gotta say, the fact that you were wondering that, Joey, it fills my heart with pride. I feel very good when people look at my projects and wonder, was that CGI? Was that practical? Was that a suit? Was that a puppet? I mean, you made my day. Thank you. This is a great way to start the week. All right, so let's watch this again. Now things still might go a little slow, but here we are in the Bay Area. There's an eerie atomic glow underneath the water, and then lightning strikes, jets are already taken away, and boom, right as Godzilla rises out of the water. I just love how these battleships just start blasting him. And I noticed this earlier and I kind of got a kick out of it. You see this jet over here on the right on the aircraft carrier. As soon as those ships start opening fire, like, can you imagine being that pilot? I mean, it's already a war zone and you're flying between Godzilla and, just battleships just blasting him with high artillery. It's gotta be a rush. It would scare me. And we see some bullets here. This is really just the sort of machine gun kind of automatic fire or whatever from the jets that are coming in. And then they just blast him nearly at point blank with their missiles. And they fly past, and of course Godzilla reacts. These are the sort of things that you want to storyboard in advance, and usually you have a couple choices. For a project like this, I would recommend several different layers to your storyboard. Start with the background, so in this case, a burning city. And then, hey, here's the ocean for your second one. And then from there, and be descriptive, leave yourself notes so you don't forget. And here, you got to time it just right, especially when you're working with stop motion, because there are so many ways this could have gone wrong. But you're the animator, and you have more power and influence than you realize. You could time everything. It takes practice. It takes a lot of troubleshooting. There's timing as well, but this is something that is within your capability of doing. In this case, I started with Godzilla. Here we have Godzilla right here, and when I animated him in my separate Gojira motion, and you're seeing like there's so many different frames here. So I did a combination of both stop motion. In this case, here's a still image. He's not moving, but that's okay. And then here is a video of him moving. This is just me in front of the green screen, and I'm just moving. I have him on top of a clear sort of platform, so that if I were to get his feet, it's so clear that it makes it easier for your computer green screen effect to remove if necessary, or you could just cut around it. But this part right here, I'm just moving him. And then we're about to cut to the stop motion element. And all of this is the same video. I really have started just recording everything in video. And the reason why is because, unlike just shooting this in a still image where you'll take that image and then just make it 2 to 3 frames, as a video, I don't know if you guys can tell, but the lighting and shading on your subject, or Godzilla in this case, changes almost frame by frame. And compare that to a still image where I don't know if you guys are aware, but a still image can really just look, still. Like it almost feels like it's lifeless in a way. But with the lighting and the shading changing every frame, really adds, I think, more to the stop motion itself. I think it really makes it feel like this character is alive. It's part of it. Oh, and you may see the green screen moving itself here, and the reason why is because during the stop motion part, I moved Godzilla slightly over. So I had to take the top everything here and move it just right to a line, but that's expected. That always happens. Here is a still image though. This is just him roaring. No need to just have a video recording going, but you could if you would like to. And here is a combination of both stop motion, animation. I'm having him slightly turn. This is a video right here. We quickly do a little stop motion again, back to slightly turning him, stop motion again, and on and on. And this both simulates movement and stop motion all in one. And you can see these still images are key to me being able to time everything. So I started with Godzilla, and then once I got his movements down, it dictated everything from there. So then I could take my fighter jets and time it just right so that when they fly in front of him, he's already turning. So then we can make it look like he is reacting to them. That's one way you can do it. And I feel like it's just best to start with your main subject at hand. Second, I'm gonna take a drink of water. Whoo boy. All right. There are a lot of conversations happening. That's great. Let's see. Question from Joey. How long does it take for you to film a stop motion shot like this? A couple hours? For this one, you said film. Just to film itself, yeah, I would say it took me roughly an hour or so just to get the whole, because this is what made the cut. There's a lot of trial and error to be expected, but it took me about an hour to get this part just right. And then of course with setup and everything, you gotta like you gotta clean your green screen. You gotta make sure, because I have cats, and well, some of them you might have seen before. A couple years ago, I made a Godzilla versus a giant cat video. You guys should totally check it out if you haven't seen it. It's so cool. Anyway, I have cats, and they get cat hair everywhere, so I have to clean that off my green screen. You wouldn't want to like be watching one of my movies and then suddenly like, what's that cat hair doing there? But that's just one of many things you do to prep. You get your green screen set up, the lighting just right, and then you animate your character, and then filming is finished, and now it's time for post-production. All right, I think I can show you guys what happens here. So Godzilla gets hit by these fighter jets while he's still being peppered by cannon fire. He roars, he's getting irritated. He looks over at those attacking him, and you know what's coming next. Oh, you could just feel it. Just like not like how these guys are feeling it now. Look at him, just gloating. It's like he's indestructible or something, and he knows it. Alright, so let's take a look at that battleship right there. This was interesting to do because every time I start a new project, I always try and make sure I'm doing something I've never done before. And for this project, there's a couple things I'm still in the process of seeing if I can do. But for this, I thought I could split the battleship in two without actually, you know, snapping my battleship model in half, that wouldn't be fun. Although these battleship models, aren't they impressive, guys? I mean, take a look at the quality of the detail of these. These weren't expensive either. If you guys are interested, like, I definitely look for these. They are they get the job done, all things considered. But here we are, we're starting with my main battleship, and I have the reflection in the water and everything. Normally I try and not do this until it's all saved as a comp, because the reflection itself might be compromised. It might not look right, it might not be able to fit, but I managed to get it to work. And right about here is when Godzilla's atomic breath, oh, let's skipping the resolution, we're gonna bring that back to a quarter. Godzilla's atomic breath splits everything in half, and to do this I cut two language. I could do it. I duplicated the original battleship, and then I duplicated it into two separate ones. Well, one half versus the other, so a right one and a left one. Even though I didn't, maybe I layered it right? No, I didn't. I don't know. Sometimes it's important to make sure you're layering these things, giving them the proper title, because it can get confusing, especially if you're working with a team of other VFX artists. All right, so let's look at the motion here. So what I did is, you know, I'm clicking P and R for position and rotation, and motion blur is on for each of these files. And let's remove some of the debris, because this is kind of difficult. All right. We can also make sure this big explosion in here stays off. Rule of thumb also, I'm going to have to remember to bring these all back in, because if I were to go back to the main comp later and try and save, you know, export it, it's going to leave a lot of this out, and then I'm going to feel very silly later for leaving this rendering all night only to find out a lot of things are missing. Remember the key stuff that I was talking about? This is one of them. All right, so we see here the left half starts off, they both have the same position, rotation as the OG Battleship file. What I do here is I snap it in two, and it's a very quick motion when it goes up from the force of the blast, and then it takes it a little bit longer. And here's another thing I'm going to show. Excuse me. I'm going to show you the mask. This is the pen tool at work here where I cut out. This is how I managed to just divide the battleship in two different halves. And the mask itself is about to move, because I figured, oh, it's submerging underwater. It's going underwater, half of it anyway. And from there, you'll notice, and it's easier to notice when I'm moving my mouse, but the halves are still in motion. They're still like drifting. And another effect I did, it's not part of this comp, but I included oil and debris in the water, so it can, because we saw a big mass of debris blast out, you know, it's like the ship's guts just blasting out into the air. And then I added some fire, and the fire itself is parented to their respective half that they're part of, so that means I don't really have to change the position or rotation of the fire itself. And if we look closely, it might be a little bit difficult to see, but right here we could see the oil I was talking about. Apologies. Let's see if I can bring up the resolution to full for just a second. Forgive me, great computer. Please don't explode. It might take a little moment to render, and by a little moment I mean an eternity. But it was important to have, you know, debris and oil in the water because it just adds more. Like, it just makes this a greater, like, you could see that there's just so much destruction happening at once. So yeah, we can see the oil. It's a little bit harder to see the debris, but it's floating around. Oh. And one thing that I'm gonna do is go back into that main comp just to check out the lens blur of the fire, because I want to make sure the other fiery effect, or wherever that may be, I think it's underneath it. This one right here. Kind of want it to be about the similar, you know, I want it blurred out similarly so there's consistency there, but okay. Some of these comps I've had to combine into one, and the reason why is because we're about to unleash Super Comp, which will escalate things a great deal. But before we get into that, I also had a shockwave. Oh, we'll bring the rain in just a second. The shockwave itself here just adds a little bit more power to the impact, to the explosion itself. And then, of course, it is raining because why not, man? It adds more dynamic. I feel like the rain kind of makes it seem more like these guys are in way over their head. They are not ready for what's coming out of that water. And it's always nice to have Godzilla being not just a force of nature, but like the conduit of nature itself. Like, he represents everything, both the fury of nature, but also the wonder. But it's nice to have the world, nature itself, kind of responding, reacting to his every whims, like he's the true master of the world. Alright, so here we see as soon as he rises, he's getting blasted left and right. I even include some extra splashes here, just even though I don't show any of the cannons or bullets ricocheting and hitting the water, I thought it adds you know, just more energy, more motion. Everything just feels chaotic. These guys are giving it everything they have, just blasting away. And then we're getting to the moment. So he just watched all the jets fly by, and then he's like, all right, you really want to fight? You got the you shot me first, but I'm gonna shoot you last. Charges up, and it's gone. Just imagine this to like Akira Ifukube Godzilla theme just booming in the background. Truly a force of nature. This is gonna be so much. This is gonna be so fun when I get to sound effects. How many of you, to my fellow VFX artists in the chat, how many of you do your own sound design? I think I remember one of you mentioned that you do your own. I think Jacobson Studios mentioned he is doing his own score. But do you guys like... I always feel like doing the sound effects is like a whole different thing. It's like it's a whole new ball game. You're literally like rewiring your brain. You go from doing VFX work to sound design. It like is just insane to, you know, go back and forth. I mean, I usually I'm like a, unless I'm collaborating with others, I mean, for Mecha Godzilla versus Destroya versus Space Godzilla, I had, incredible voice acting talent from some friends and just incredible people. You may know, like, Brandon from Up From the Depths, one of the best Godzilla YouTube channels out there. He was kind enough to help. So collaborating with all of them was just so much fun. But, like, aside from that, usually I'm doing most of this on my own, and it's tough. I almost, I should definitely consider reaching out maybe to people who exclusively do sound design, because it's a lot. There's so much, like, to go from doing the stop motion to doing the visual effects to then doing the sound effects. It's just prepare yourself. Whew. All right, so we are about an hour and 11 minutes. And now, sorry if I'm making strange noises. I think we have just enough time to do Super Comp. Now, Super Comp comes from Red Giant. Red Giant, or I think now they're owned by Macron. But these guys do stellar work. And Super Comp is one of the best ways that I've been able to really sell or makes quite a number of my viewers, subscribers forget that they're watching, well, toys. Like Godzilla toys fighting. It really enhances everything. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to click on Super Comp. Not every comp you see is currently has received the Super Comp treatment just yet. That is still a work in progress. But let me show you what I mean. So I turn it on. It's going to take a moment because this is a lot. So already I want you to take a look at some of the detail, especially with Godzilla himself. And we're going to, like, remove the rain. So Super Comp is off, and now it is on. Look at that. Super Comp, one of the great things about it is it allows you to use light wrap, which there are other sources you can rely on, other plugins. It's not exclusively something belonging to just Red Giant Super Comp. But what Super Comp does provide, and to me this is a game changer. Here, I'm going to move this front and center. Hopefully I don't break anything. Let's look at Godzilla himself. Joey says, I don't record many sound effects, usually use sound libraries. Same here. I actually used to record back in the day my own sound effects, but there are so many great resources out there. And yeah, it is a lot of work to do. I have nothing but respect for the people the sound designers who go out there and collect and record sound effects, like, in the wild. It's got to be a lot of fun. Okay, so here we have Godzilla, and here is what I absolutely love about Super Comp. This is called Volume Fog. Check that out. Literally casting shadows around Godzilla. Notice how there are shadows coming down, both light and shadows, by his arms, across his wrist and his knuckles, around the sides of his neck. When I first saw this, I Well, I may be a little hyperbolic right now, but I wept. It was so great. And Supercomp comes with a variety of different presets you can use. I usually rely on backlit atmospheric for Godzilla, for other kaiju, but there are other options that you could choose from. But let's see. We left off with jets, missile fronts, but we need to also add bullets, burning sparks, and explosions. Let's take a look. Alright, so what I need to do first is figure out where exactly that happens, because now this project is gigantic. It's easy to lose track of where everything is. This is a good place to start right here. Alright, so we have our bullet here. We're going to see it pop up in just a second. And there are other things to consider here since I had to combine my comps together. Oh yeah, you can even see the bullet reflections off the surface of the water right here. That's pretty cool. But when I come over here and click on Big Glow, it really, it's simple enough. You can always revise it. The amount, 10%. I'm going to leave that for the time being. We can come back if we need to. But here is where we need to be careful, because if it's too high, the fire effect, the glow is going to look really, if you ask me, a little bit much. Like, there's no point in having your fire glow with this much intensity. So actually what might end up happening here is I'm going to have to reduce it. But right now it doesn't look too bad. But if I go to the amount and lower it to, let's say, 7, that's not bad either. That's actually looking pretty good. Okay, so we can move forward to what is called Battleship Front Firepower. And yeah, I come up with a bunch of strange names, but whatever works. And you can see what's happening here. This is where all those cannons, this is for the front battleship, the ones closest to us, the viewer. And you can see the different angles at work here. And really, I made some changes here and there, tiny little tweaks, maybe a rotation change here, maybe change the size here, but it's basically the same animation because I'm lazy. And you're gonna notice this is a little strange because it's showing up when there's no battleship. And the reason why is because this is all happening, well, behind the battleship. And you'll see why in just a second. Let's add a quick little glow effect. Maybe reduce that down to a 6. Should do the trick. And we're not quite there yet because there's this little thing called lightning that I have to add. So I want to get to the example. Mental note. Come back to this so we can. So Tom can remain. I guess so you guys can understand what I'm saying, so I don't sound like someone who's just speaking nonsense. I know I'm not that convincing. I've led you all astray. So I kind of like it at a 7 there. Okay, so now we're ready. Let's bring in the front battleship here. And like I said earlier, we have our... Ooh, hold on. I clicked on the wrong thing. Battleship firepower. Here's what I'm wanting. Okay. So excited to do this, but I'm worried I'm going to trigger my poor computer even further. So you'll notice that it's the cannons themselves are behind our battleship comp here. And the reason why is I mean, you don't really need to have it in front. I mean, it would be cool to maybe have smoke or fiery effects kind of like blowing back, but just having it be in front of your battleship, of the cannons themselves, or really that's all you really need to do. Ooh, that looks cool. Look at that. Let's bring it up. That looks so cool. I mean, it might be a little bright, maybe too bright, but it's so cool. All right, so let's see. I am going to show you what happens when I do my favorite thing with Super Comp. So I go to presets, backlit atmospheric, and our battleship itself is about to change. You can see light wrap already at work here. And we're going to go to haze. And this, you'll notice the coloring. It's taking the glare, the effect, the light around it, in this case the cannon fire, and it's intensifying it on its surface. This is great, but sometimes it's a little bit much. But we're not going to know how much we want to change until I bring volume fog into the mix. And here's where things get crazy. Alright, so already I feel like the amount itself is just too much. So the amount I'm going to change to 33%, and I'm going to drop it down to 17%. The depth is exactly, think of it as the length of the light, if that makes sense. You don't want it, I think, too much, especially since we could see the edges of the battleship, and it's already beginning to look a little like it's not holding out pretty well. And also we might have to shift the center of it slightly. I think that was a little bit much. It's kind of like an interesting dynamic, you know, between trying to like determine, okay, so there's the light source. Realistically speaking, where would the shadow actually be cast? You know, is this accurate? But also, accuracy is good and all the more power to artists who want to be as accurate to physics as possible. But you also want it to look cool, you know? Maybe a little bit more. Oh, I was already at that point. I'm really beginning to look kind of like in this area as well. Maybe bring it up. Yeah, that's beginning to look a little better. Hang in there, computer. You're doing great. You're doing great, buddy. Yeah, I think we kind of want it around -15. Oof. This is where you can get lost for hours to just play around. And that's the fun part, guys. That's what makes VFX fun. It's like a lot of just experimentation. Like, this is just like a drop in like an ocean of possibility. Look at all this other stuff that we haven't really gotten into. All these other controls are essential. Like the shadow amount, the quality is great. There is so much you can play with here. And you know, usually at this point I've been using Super Comp a lot, that I just know exactly what usually just works, that matches, you know, my expectations or maybe even exceeds them. But it's not like what I'm doing now is the best. Like, it can't get any better, because it could. right now I'm satisfied with where we are, but now we're going to move a little bit forward. Almost out of time, but I do want to get to Godzilla's atomic breath. Well, we'll end the stream on Godzilla's atomic breath, but first, okay, so burning smoke, this is exactly what it sounds like. This is right after Godzilla's atomic breath goes off and everything just, you know, everything's just destroyed, and it helps to have some smoke there. And I don't know if there's really much I could add here. I could do a little bit of this thing called screen like. It's going to make the smoke more apparent, but you also don't want too much of it, so I can reduce the opacity a little bit. Maybe that should be fine for now. I'm going to come back to this. Mr. Rooster says, gotta go, see you, dude. Hey, man, thanks for coming. Yeah, please come back again. Keep us posted on your project. Take care. All right, it's time. Let's do the atomic breath. Oh my gosh. I admit, every time I do a Godzilla video, it's always right when you get to his atomic breath. It's exciting. It is always so much fun. There's so many different assets I can use, different beam effects, different designs. But this one I thought was just so fitting. All right, so we take his atomic breath and we're going to use what we've seen before. Simple big glow effect. However, it's going to be too much glow. This is just too much. We know Godzilla is super powerful, but this is kind of ridiculous. Let's lower it to 3% amount first, just to see where that puts us. That's not bad, but it's kind of... it's still a little too bright for my taste, so let's just bring it down to 2. Maybe that'll do the trick. Maybe 1%? I mean, it doesn't have to be 1 or 2%. You can also make it like 1.5%. And that might actually be just enough. One thing I'm also going to do, I'm still not quite finished yet, as you can see, but what I'm going to do later, when all this is said and done, after like it takes like a week to render, or maybe in the same comp later on, I'm going to add some flare effects. It's just for the lighting dynamic. But I think that's a good time to close off. There's still a lot more to do for this, and if there's any new big changes I'm going to add, I'll be sure to do another stream so we can go over it together. But otherwise, guys, it's been great. I'm really excited about this project. Quickly press save so we're good. Yes, I am excited. This is going to be so much fun. It's just kind of like a nice little break to what I've been doing recently and for the last few years. Usually it's just kaiju v kaiju, but here it's Godzilla taking on battleships. Kind of feels more like it belongs in a Godzilla movie. All right, everyone, thank you so much for being here. You guys are awesome. Big thanks to those of you who were part of the chat. I really appreciate it. The interaction goes a long way. Normally when I'm doing VFX work, I might just have music playing and stuff. So it was nice sharing this time with you all. If you are new to my channel, you liked what you saw, consider liking and subscribing, yada yada. Be sure to watch more of my videos. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. I'm always open to receiving constructive feedback. Is there something that you would like to see? Shout out and let me know. Everyone, have a great rest of your evening / night, or wherever you are watching from. Have a good week. Stay safe. Thank you all. See ya.